Okay. This is a colonial box loom, tape loom. And it's made out of a wheel that you thread. I've got silk threads on it because I'm doing a silk apron, tape apron. And then it'll go through a heddle. And the heddle is where you get your up and your down to put your shuttle through. So those are your sheds. So you pop the shuttle through the down shed and then go through the up shed. And then down shed. Now the interesting thing about the tape loom is you also need to tie your tape loom to something, so when you put this pressure on your tape, you use tape to tie it to something solid so you can make tape. And then you'll take your little shuttle and tighten your tape. And so that's how your basic tape loom works. You might wonder what you use tape for besides tying your clothing on. And there are many, many things that you use besides keeping your box loom. Like I said, I am making a silk apron tie. Here's an example of a basic apron tie. It can be as decorative or as plain as you like. But the ladies would use these as well as linen tapes to make sure things are attached. For outdoorsy things, you might make woolen tape, which would stand the test of time outdoors. Tape was used very much for men's outerwear, and that would be thicker tape out of linen. And you might use tape for your haversacks, tape for belts, tape to attach coats, for many, many uses. You would use fine, thin linen tape for stay tape. When you needed to lace your stays, this would go for one side of a stay. And this is just a tightly woven linen tape that would be very good for stays because it doesn't have a lot of give. This is fine silk tape. This is a garter tape. And so the ladies would tie their stockings on, and you would have garter tape. This could be done in linen or silk, and you would tie your stockings up. You could tie your garters below your knee or above your knee, whichever you feel is most comfortable. And you might want a couple of pairs of garters. The men also might want garter tape for fancier outfits. You could put linen tape together and make small bags to put things in and put a little button or attachment. So this is just several layers of tape sewn together, so I have a little pocket pouch. This could go in a haversack. This could go for lace making, for putting various things in my pocket to keep them separate. You might use a fancy lace tape for a little reticule, a little bag. So tape was essential, widely used in various applications. It was another home craft that the colonial Daughters of Liberty did during the time after the boycotts, because they could do this at home instead of importing it from France and Britain. And it wasn't that tough of a skill to learn. Children could learn it. You could have very large floor tape looms. This is just a small portable box loom that would allow people to make very long tapes. This I use mostly for silk tape. So keep using your tape. In one of Chaucer's poems, he discussed the ladies would not stop their knotting. And they were always talking. This is a lost art. This was very common in the colonies and long before, and it's not so common now. But if you weren't a good lace maker and you wanted to decorate your garments, which most women enjoy a good ribbon, a good fringe, a good lace, but lace making takes a long time to learn. Colonial shuttle knotting didn't take that long. And so you have a little bone structure, a knotting shuttle, and these knotting shuttles have a little part where you wind your threads around. They could be made of wood, they could be made of metal, they could be made of bone. And in the colonies, they were highly decorated. We don't have a lot of extant examples anymore, a few in museums. What shuttle knotting is you wind this is silk cording, and you'll wind it around your shuttle, and you would take it and just make literally knots. And then you will make other knots next to it. And there were 4 or 5 specific types of knots: chenille knots, sugar plum knots, single knots. And then depending on the types of knots you make, these are little 4-ply chenille knots. They look like little biscuits or something. But what do you do with all of this? This is your handwork, because you would carry handwork where you went, because as one forefather mentioned, I believe it was John Adams, I'm not staking my life on that, if women sit around and they're talking, just talking, they're gossiping. If women sit around and they're talking, but they're doing something with their hands, they are not gossiping. So as long as you're doing your handwork, you can say the same things to your neighbor lady, but you're not gossiping. So handwork, your knitting, your shuttle knotting, lace making, very, very common. Now, once you've got your knotting, what do? It was commonly used on bags. You would couch your knots of many different colors, and this is just a little reticule. And in the reticule, I actually carry my knotting shuttles so that when I want to sit and talk, I won't be accused of gossiping. But you would use your various colors of knots and couch them and embroider around on pretty little things. Oddly enough, most commonly were men's jackets. They're very fancy jackets, had lots of embroidery, lots of knotting. Is common for women's reticules. You would use long strands of knotting in garments to give added little decoration. And then you move from knotting to fly fringe. And fly fringe is just the natural precursor. Knotting is the natural precursor to fly fringe, because you have strands of knotting. And now it's time to move up. And so where before I had a thicker string, silk string, that I'm putting in knots, now I have fine string. I have very thick segments here, so it's easy to see. But this is silk thread, and it's wrapped around my knotting shuttle, and I will, with this, knot segments. So I'm going to knot certain segments, and then I will cut these segments out. Let me get another one. And this is one of the ways. There are many ways to make fly fringe, but this is one of the ways. So I'll knot, and then I'll cut my segments out. And this again, your little patriotic duty, ways so that you don't have to buy things. And then your little strands, you're going to take a little hog's bristle brush on your little strands, and you're going to fray your little edges till they look like, almost like little butterfly wings. And you would get children involved in doing this also. And then you end up with lots of these lovely little butterfly wings. And you use those little butterfly wings, and I'm going to do a large one. We'll ignore the ones on the floor. And then you'll take another knotting shuttle where it is loaded with, again, silk thread, and you will knot your little strands on it. So I will literally take a knot where the hole of the knot is, you're going to, and I'm using a very large fly fringe for demonstration, just because it's easier to see, the delicate ones. And I'm putting it in between two little knots I made, and then I will tighten my knot. And if I had my glasses on, I'd see it better. But I'm going to tighten my knot. At first, it really doesn't look like much. So I'm tightening my knot against my little flies. But once you add that up and do over and over and over again, you end up with yards of this beautiful fringe that you can put on gowns, on jackets, on many things. And it gives a lovely decoration. You can use it on reticule bags. You can do it many things. So here was another way a Daughter of Liberty boycotts the English and the French exports, and they too can make beautiful things for their clothing and make extra that they would sell to their friends and neighbors. And another way to be patriotic in the colonies.